I'm also, in addition to rabies control, capturing bats, we're also going to touch base on bite investigations. As Laura mentioned, my name is Amy Hughes. I'm one of the staff members here at DuPage County Animal Services. I am in a bit of a hybrid role. I am part of our animal client services team, so I'm part of the public-facing team here in the shelter. I'm also one of our field officers. So if we haven't had the pleasure of meeting in the field, we are likely to cross paths here in the shelter or on the phone. Okay, a couple of our learning goals today. We're going to touch base on rabies here in the community, the bite investigation process specific to our agency, what happens next here at the shelter, your role in that bite investigation process, and public resources that are available to your team as well as residents here in DuPage. We all have a general idea of what rabies is. It is a viral infection that affects mammals. Unfortunately, it has a high fatality rate and there's no known cure. We typically see it transmitted through bite wounds, which is the reason we're here today to talk about animal bites. In our community, nationwide, it's considered a rare disease. We see roughly 4,000 cases per year, with less than 10 cases occurring in people. Here in DuPage, we processed just over 1,200 bites last year. We had 4 positive rabies cases, all occurring in bats. We are very proud to report that there have been no incidents of rabies in pets since 1967, so something's going right for us. Rabies control, that is a dedicated effort to prevent the spread of rabies, to spread awareness about rabies, bite prevention, as well as vaccine compliance and enforcement. It's a dedicated effort that most communities have in place, and it's been so since around the 1950s. It is a vaccine that's required by state law. So we do provide enforcement for that. Anytime we have a pet presented to us that has bitten someone, they need to have proof of a current vaccine or become compliant as soon as possible. Pets that are required to be vaccinated, that would include cats and dogs over 4 months of age. Having this healthy pet population that is vaccinated against rabies is our best line of defense against rabies that actually exists within our wildlife population. So that's why we encourage pets to be vaccinated. They are sometimes the first ones to become exposed to a potential rabies risk. And having that in between us and rabies is the best thing we can do to prevent human exposure. You may see the term rabies registration come up when it comes to vaccines. Not only does a pet need to be vaccinated, they do also need to be registered with the county. We have a process here where they purchase a tag that their animal wears to show that they have a current rabies vaccine. That tag helps us maintain a database with vaccine information should that animal ever be involved in a bite incident. We can help locate that vaccine info to confirm their immunity. Rabies control is the primary way, rabies registration is the primary way that we fund rabies control. Those registration fees help us maintain that database and help us cover fees when it comes to ACOs doing bite investigations, field services, any type of educational outreach. It can also help support efforts for low-cost vaccine services. Okay, so bite investigations, what is it? We first and foremost want to advocate that it is a form of public safety. It is a process we have in order to make sure that someone does not have a personal health risk to them or their pet. Our goal is not to punish someone, to take their pet away, to put their animal in dog jail, whatever you want to call it. Our goal is to make sure that that animal has a current vaccine and follows any and all rabies observation requirements. We also want to provide that information to a victim party to make sure that they, A, were not exposed to rabies, or B, seek proper medical care as needed. Bite investigations, they also provide a great opportunity for us to talk about bite prevention, so how to prevent future incidents. It's also a great opportunity to talk about factors that may lead to biting behavior and different ways that we can manage it. It's also a great opportunity for us to discuss responsible ownership when it comes to pets. So before you begin a bite investigation, you may be asking yourself, am I looking at a bite? To keep it as simply as possible, any incident where you have broken skin caused by teeth, that is a bite. The bite can range in severity. You could be looking at a mild skin abrasion all the way to a serious injury. Regardless of the severity, any bite that happens where broken skin occurs should be reported to our office so that we can provide guidance on the rabies observation protocol. Of course, it would be too simple to say all bites are visible, easy to tell what they are. It's important to mention that bats are kind of the exception. Because their teeth are so small, you may not see a bite wound from a bat. In that circumstance, we would advise any situation in which a person is found in the living quarters with a bat, or there's an unattended pet with a bat, let's assume there's an exposure risk and follow the process of reporting it as a bite. I know everyone's really excited to talk about filling out paperwork for an animal bite, but it is important to note that the first thing we do is secure our scene and promote public safety before we're doing any type of documentation. You may have a really tense situation. As our law enforcement agencies, you're oftentimes the first party that's responding to the scene. You could have really emotional and upset people. You could have injured parties. You could have an animal that's not yet contained. We want to make sure all of those boxes are checked before you're getting your information and documenting the incident. So any and all animals on the scene, biting or non-biting, they need to be located and contained away from the situation. If medical response has not been called yet, please make sure you're doing that so they're en route. And then make sure that we're identifying any parties relevant to the incident. So that could be the offending party, the victim party, and any witnesses involved. In a perfect scenario, the biting animal is already contained and separated from everything that's going on. But more often than not, there is still an animal that needs assistance. Best case scenario, we have an owner or someone familiar to help us contain that animal. That's going to be our best line of defense, especially if this animal is really stressed with all of the emotions at play and the extra foot traffic. We want to have that person that they can rely on to help us get them contained. Ideally, that animal is moved into a room with a door, a fenced area they can't escape, a crate or a kennel, whatever they use. We want to make sure that they are kept alone, isolated from other people and animals. There are some situations where there's not an owner available, and you may be the person that's tasked to unfortunately contain that animal. It's doable. We have a few tips and tricks for you. Always prioritize your own safety. We want to make sure that you are thinking of yourself and your ability to do what you need to do at all times. There's no sense in rushing things. We want to go slow, and we want to use the power of distractions and barriers to help us get that animal where it needs to go. That could be a nice smelly treat just to get the focus off of you a little bit. That could be a second person making noise, just enough to get them redirected where they need to go. It's also helpful to have a barrier. So if we have doors, gates, a Rubbermaid toad lid, anything to help create that buffer and ideally corral your animal where they need to be. If you're trained to use a catch pole, that may be the best time to use one, although we do strongly recommend that you are familiar with how to use a catch pole properly. There may be some circumstances in which you're considering removing an animal from the scene. It's not uncommon for an owner to be really emotional and request you to remove that animal immediately. We don't recommend taking that route. There are usually other options that we can take first. It's important to remind a person that just because their animal bit someone, they're not required to give up that animal right in the moment. We do encourage that they take time to decompress from the incident and think through their options. Our shelter is always available to talk with owners about their animals, especially if they're experiencing bite behavior, if they're struggling to maintain that at home, and what their options could be. There are a few different things. We could always talk about seeking behavior support. We can talk about humane euthanasia with their vet, or as a last resort, surrendering that animal back to the rescue they adopted from, or surrendering to our shelter. We do advise that last option is the last resort because it typically results in humane euthanasia here. A couple instances in which an animal may come to our shelter. should note most animals during a biting incident, they'll remain at home and they will move forward with a rabies observation protocol. But in rare cases, you may need to make a plan for transporting an animal here. If we have a stray animal that has unfortunately bitten someone, there's no known owner, no home to take it back to, you need to make plans to have it transported here so that we can start the stray hold process and rabies observation protocol. If it's an owned animal and the owner is either deceased or injured and we have no next of kin able to take over care, you may need to make plans to bring that animal here for a stray hold and a rabies observation. If you're ever in a situation where there's discussion about an animal being removed from the scene and it doesn't quite fit any of these, call us, ask to speak to an officer directly so that we can walk through your situation and make sure you're taking the proper steps. Okay, now on to the paperwork part. Reporting an animal bite, it is considered a time-sensitive event. We want to get that report within 24 hours of it happening. That gives us every opportunity to provide proper guidance on the rabies observation protocol and allow for a victim party to seek proper medical treatment. In addition to any report that you're generating through your office, we do have animal bite report forms on the county website that you'll need to download and fill out. We have two different forms. I'll skip ahead really quick here. The first one is our report of animal bite. This is for any incident in which an animal bites a person, resulting in broken skin. The second one is titled Dog-to-Dog Bite Report. It can technically apply to any incident in which an animal bites another animal. Our most common one is dog-to-dog or wildlife-to-dog. I should note, if you have a situation where both a pet and a person were bitten, we're going to recommend you fill out one of each form just so we have everybody's contact information for that. You're going to fill out that form, you're going to confirm all of the contact information on that form, and then our office will be in contact. We'll be following up to discuss next steps regarding that incident and any expectations that'll be required of the owner party. Some things that help us complete our report would be your police report number, and if you have it available to you, a copy of your report. We realize sometimes that requires supervisor approval, so at least the PD report number is helpful. That way we know where to start. If you're able to get any vaccine or rabies registration information at the time of the incident, that is also helpful for us so that we can therefore confirm it for you. We also recommend getting pictures of injuries at the time of the incident before medical care happens. That way we can note the severity, as that may play a role in their investigation. Photos of injuries, just like the picture. We want to see it just as it is before Band-Aids and sutures happen. In some medical facilities, you'll actually see they have like a measuring stick, something to give us an idea of scale. You may not have that available, so if you have something common like a pen, a can of pop, something to give us an idea of what the size is, that's helpful. Any additional pictures providing context on the incident are also helpful. So, picture of the location where the bite has occurred, any damaged property that was caused as a result of the incident or may have led to the incident, those items are also helpful for us. We can receive reports, photos, forms via email is preferred. I'll make sure you have all of our contact information at the end of our presentation. We can also receive it by fax, although we know documents like photos are not so easy via fax, so email is helpful in that regard. Okay, so what happens next? The majority of our bites are domestic animal bites. You are there to secure the scene and document the incident. We are here to provide the rabies control portion of that process. Our ACOs, one of them will be assigned to the case. We will reach out to all parties involved to get a better understanding of the circumstances and what happened. We'll also work to verify any rabies vaccine information for animals that have been involved and provide guidance on what the rabies observation protocol is for their situation. We do follow up on the rabies observation to make sure that an owner is complying with everything that's required. We then provide notice to the victim party on whether or not a person followed through on that. In the event we have an owner that doesn't comply with vaccines or a rabies observation, we do provide enforcement for that. In addition to those main steps, we do provide a little bit of extra support. We want to make sure that we're always discussing any potential safety concerns and bite prevention opportunities. We do have a list of behavior support referrals for owners that are looking to keep their pet, but they need help safely managing them. We can also talk about options for humane euthanasia and surrender if that's requested by the owner. So I keep mentioning the word rabies observation. What is that? It's a process in which we are observing the animal for a period of time to make sure they do not exhibit signs of rabies. A 10-day confinement is what's required. Here in DuPage County, we don't require animals to be impounded at a vet clinic or here at the shelter anytime they're supposed to do a rabies observation. We do allow for home confinement. The expectation is that that animal is to remain at home and not have any contact with people outside of their household during that period. We kind of have a two-pronged situation depending on what the bite circumstance was. If we have someone outside of the household that was bitten, they have to do the 10-day confinement, but they are also required to see a vet for a series of exams during that 10-day period. Vaccine status doesn't matter. They still have to do the exams. If their pet happens to not be updated on a rabies vaccine, they will need to get updated at the end of the 10-day confinement. All vet exams are at the owner's expense. They are required by state law to complete that process. If somebody was bitten in the household, it's a little different. We're still doing a 10-day home confinement, but we're not required to go see the vet. We do need to verify a current vaccine or make plans to get vaccinated as soon as that confinement period is ended. Okay. The other portion of our bites include wildlife exposure. Thankfully, our interactions with wildlife are low overall. However, our positive cases that we get every year always come from wildlife, specifically bats. The high-risk species for our area is determined by the Illinois Department of Public Health. So bats are number one. They are the most likely to come back positive, although the occurrence is low, so less than 1% of the total population is suspected to be infected with rabies. However, they are most likely to come in contact with people. We have some other species that are more vulnerable to the rabies virus. That can include skunks, raccoons, foxes, coyotes. We may have a situation in which a bite is documented if someone's handling an animal and they're bitten, unfortunately. Our third situation would be any of those species that has any type of physical contact with a pet. So every year we do have situations where a cat finds a bat inside the home and has it in their mouth, or a dog is taking a tumble with a fox out in the backyard. Those are situations that are considered higher risk and a possible exposure for rabies. Anytime you are informed of a potential risk of rabies with wildlife, we need to be notified of it. Whether or not you have an animal, we should have a report submitted to our office for processing. If there's an animal that we can contain and submit for testing, that's preferred. We do understand there are some situations in which maybe that animal's contained, but the resident or the police department cannot transport it to our shelter. We do encourage you to reach out to us in that case so that we can assist with that. Okay. In most cases, when we're talking about wildlife exposure, we're talking about bats in the living quarters of a home. I want to reiterate, we really appreciate the police department's support in containing bats and bringing them to our shelter. Because this is the highest risk that we face when it comes to rabies exposure, it is considered an essential service. The good thing is it's pretty simple when it comes to containing a bat. Nowhere near as difficult as a really angry raccoon, but there are some specific steps we like to cover. We're not very fancy here at the shelter. We keep a few tools in our vehicles, thick gloves, a little fish net, maybe a butterfly net, and then some sort of container with a lid with a few holes punched in the top. We keep these on hand just in the event we get called out. We do recommend being as gentle as possible if you're in a situation where you're containing a bat. Please don't attempt to injure it or kill it on your own. It's inhumane, and we don't want to jeopardize any potential for a specimen result. So if we damage that body too much, we may not be able to test it, and that is a big problem for a victim party. Just a short clip here to show some handling. I want to just make a quick note. The gentleman in the beginning, he's holding a live bat with thick gloves. Please just pretend that didn't happen. We don't do that, and we don't recommend that. But the lady in the video, she's doing a great job of exactly what we would expect any law enforcement agency or an animal control officer to do.
My name is Robert Rudd. I'm the director of the State Rabies Diagnostic Laboratory. Not all bats have rabies, but if you find a bat in your home and there is any chance that the bat came in contact with a person or pet, make sure you catch the bat for rabies testing. This includes bats found close to an unattended child or someone sleeping. If you don't catch the bat and get it tested, the person may need rabies treatment. First, close the windows and doors and don't take your eyes off the bat. Use a container with a lid or stiff cardboard and use gloves if possible. When the bat lands, approach it slowly and place the container over it. Slide the cardboard under the container to trap the bat inside and cover or tape shut. Contact your local health department to have the bat tested for rabies at the state lab. By catching the bat, you can reduce your risk of rabies and avoid unnecessary rabies treatment.
I like how serious she was about it. Like, she meant business. She didn't take her eyes off that bat for 1 second.
My name is Rob.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we have potential wildlife exposure. We're filling out a bite report. What does that look like compared to a domestic pet? Same thing. You're securing the scene, documenting the incident. We're providing the rabies control portion. We'll still reach out to all parties involved just to confirm details, figure out the urgency of testing. And if there are any pets involved, we're going to get vaccine information for them as well. There are some additional protocols required for pets that are exposed to wildlife. So we want to be in contact. We want to be aware of what pets are exposed and in contact with their owners so that they can get timely treatment for their animal. If there's a specimen available, so if you're able to present us a live bat, for example, we're going to get that prepped and sent off for testing. We'll also provide notification to the victim party. I do have little notes next to those 2 items because the county health department is involved in those processes. So if we have a situation where it's maybe not a high-risk species, that animal may not be submitted for testing, and that's at the discretion of the health department. If we have a positive case, they are actually the ones to provide notification to the victim party. Okay. So we're throwing a lot of info at you first thing in the morning. It's understandable. There's a lot of information out there about animal bites, the bite investigation process, and what next steps look like. There's a lot of fear that surrounds that process that we are constantly trying to mitigate. Thank you in advance for helping us with that as well. Anytime you have a question or a member of the public has a question about biting animals or bite investigation processes, you're always welcome to reach out to us directly just to get the direct information straight from our source. We do also provide some handouts on the website. Under the law enforcement section, we have bite prevention handouts for pet owners. We have the bite report process. It's an itemized checklist of what to expect and next steps. We also have a resource library available to both our law enforcement agencies and the general public. Covers a wide variety of topics, anything from common behavior issues we see in pets to wildlife in our community, as well as bite prevention and things like regarding law enforcement and their involvement in the community when it comes to animals specifically. Okay, so you took all this information home, but then something comes up and you're still not quite sure what to do. Just call us. We are available. During business hours, we've got our main office. It does get busy here. Leave us a voicemail. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. Please leave us a voicemail. If you don't get us on the phone, we will call you back, I promise. We do also have an email just for the animal control officers. After hours, we're not here, but we are available through DuCom. You can always contact dispatch and request to speak to us directly. We are more than happy to provide counsel over the phone if you're looking at a situation and you're just not sure what the next steps are. If you are in a situation where you may need an ACO out in the field to assist you, we can do that. It does require approval by your sergeant since there's billing involved with that. So we want to make sure we're walking you through all of the steps. We never want you to steer wrong when it comes to an animal incident, so don't ever hesitate to reach out if you need anything. Okay, that's it from me. Were there any questions? Anything I could help clarify? No? I did a really good job then, obviously. Thank you. Thank you. No, I'm kidding.
That video of the woman and the bat, how many of you guys have gone to pick up a bat and that bat has been flying around a room? Can you raise your hand if you've experienced that before? So it's kind of freaky, right? You're like, is this thing gonna fly in my face? Bats really don't want to be anywhere near us. I usually give it some time to kind of settle down and land and then try to get it from there. But yeah, that image of the bat circling can be a little off-putting for some people. So one of the questions as it related to bites and rabies was, what happens to the dog after the bite report is submitted? And Amy did a great job addressing that. I just want to reiterate, we don't want to take people's dogs away from them. We want to be a resource to help them understand how they can safely maintain their animals so they don't bite again in the future. And we want to make sure that that rabies compliance process is happening. In the event they don't feel it's safe to keep their animal, then we will counsel them on what their options are. That was one of our questions. One of the other things I wanted to point out too is during the rabies observation process, we do want to make sure that biting animals have a microchip. That should be happening during the first visit if that animal is not already microchipped. And we are following up on compliance for that as well. And one of the other questions as it related to bats was, where do you bring the bat? So during business hours, you're going to bring the bat into our main office. But when I'm doing the tours with you later today, we do have a new bat drop-off area in our garage. It is clearly labeled bats. Officer Anderson has an image. Oh, great. And Officer Anderson's going to show an image of that later. But we want to make sure that the bats are not just being left anywhere in that drop-off area for the next person to come in and what's in the coffee can and pop it open and have a bat flying around like we saw in the video.